Yeah, I'm not camera shy. Hello.
We have Tony the philosopher here. He's one of the very good guys in the park. He's one of the nicest people in the park. Sometimes even a bit too nice to people he shouldn't be so nice.
Yeshua, the Messiah, is coming.
We're meeting all kinds of good friends. I've been here with Iran Ames here, you know. Lovely guy, you know.
What's this channel?
This is Ames Media.
Ames Media, yeah. Subscribe, make sure you subscribe, like, comment, share, all that stuff.
Also to your channel, of course, you know, that's the claim. That's the claim. That's right.
Small channel.
Hey man, it's gonna go whoosh.
How's everything going?
Going well, you know, fresh out of the protest. I mean, fresh.
Where were you
here for like an hour? In 10 Downing Street. We go there to protest every Wednesday, Saturday and Sunday.
Have they invited you in for tea yet?
Who? The Ukrainians?
Number 10.
Number 10. No, not yet. Not yet. Not
Maybe
just
one
yet.
day.
Maybe soon. But you know, we've had some joint protests with the Iranians. You know?
Yeah. I've seen some of the.
Is it still going on? Wow, is something still going on? Or has it been crushed by?
You know what? It's very sad, right? You know, Cristiano Ronaldo's Saudi Arabian football team played a match in Iran last week, and very sadly, crowds that were following the team bus were bigger than a lot of the protests nowadays. So it seems, from the outside perspective, like many of the protests in general have lost steam. But some of the messages that we're getting from there are that it's kind of just changing form in some respects, and people in their everyday lives are making kind of small gestures of defiance against the regime. Like women are routinely conducting themselves with their hair uncovered, for example. So I guess that's just the way things have gone until maybe there's another uprising. But so, you know, these things are not always linear. So sometimes it comes in ebbs and flows, and you know, these things just need a small spark to get going again.
So I guess there were some changes because those women who walk without without the dress. They are allowed to do so to an extent.
Not explicitly, but they're doing it at the risk of punishment, at the risk of arrest. We'll see what happens. But we keep fighting the good fight.
Yeah, I know. It was, again, we had this really big protest, big march, you know, all along the Iranians. So it was really nice. They did some good speeches. It was, you know, there was one part that I was a bit surprised with. Within the protest, there seemed to be a little bit of a rift between the monarchists and the, I think, Democrats, you know, like people...
Iranians.
Iranian monarchists and Iranian, you know, they both were protesting against the Ayatollahs. They were both against the Ayatollahs.
Yeah, but there's a number of factions, and they're all hoping to get a foothold in any kind of power vacuum if the incumbent regime is deposed. Sadly, there are also a number of separatist movements trying to gain independence. I'm not going to name them, but that's one of the risks. Until there are obvious leaders in the uprising, it's going to be hard to keep people unified. But you know, I just need to go and
No worries. But look, man, seriously, I wish you guys all the best. You know, with you, we will.
Same.
Thank you very much.
Keep fighting the good fight.
Serious here. You know, that's the claim. Check it out. Great channel. There's some great debates he has there. You know, some very good stuff. This guy here, he's talking about Tony the philosopher.
No. Good to see. How are you?
Man, really nice guy.
You just turned up.
No, I've been here debating with some people. You know, talking with some people about the situation for quite a while.
Oh, cool. You've been down there in shoes.
No, we were just, you know, a few meters away.
They have a really good show.
Yeah,
It's like propaganda.
You've been filmed.
Eat it up.
I mean, we got this lovely lady here, you know, Ames Media.
We haven't.
Good.
Sorry, I'm Tony. Who are you?
Ames.
Amy.
Ames, yeah.
Ames. Hi, Ames.
So she has a channel on YouTube where she sometimes films some of these Russophiles in the park defending Russia, saying that for Mother Russia. Very silly stuff. But also there's some people who make good points and who we have a good discussion. What were you guys talking about?
I'm normally real religion. Sorry. I'm still doing religion with these guys quickly, but I won't be that much longer. Then I'll move on. Also, my physicist trains. So we're on, Islam again, but that's not really.
It's not really my thing. Yeah, I don't really talk about religion.
You're more about politics. I'm more about religion. We're kind of yin and yang that way. You do the important shit. I do the psychology.
Well, the British Empire was run by
Long ago I used to talk about philosophy, but with time, the situation in Ukraine has aggravated. So I was kind of bound to speak more about Ukraine and more about this. We have to choose priorities, right? And I think philosophy is important. Talking about philosophy is important, but there's a lot of people who either have misconceptions about Ukraine or simply might not know about the situation.
You're right. I simply don't know about. I pitched you some ideas about empathizing with Russia, which you didn't like much. And empathy is what I'm talking about with them. This is sort of the common denominator in these days. I think is empathy. But then last week in the pub, it got interesting because I think we ended up in a similar place.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we're kind of talking about the same topic, but just in slightly different terms. For me, the word empathy implies that you kind of feel for them.
You try and see it through their eyes.
You see them in a positive way, in a way.
It means that you try and imagine what it would look like through their eyes, how it would feel to
that's relating with someone. I think relating with someone, I can relate with Russians, even with the Russophiles. I can relate. I understand what they mean, but I disagree with them. I can relate, but I don't remove any accountability and any responsibility from them. They're still responsible for their actions.
I'm not saying it makes their actions right. I'm just saying you get a better perspective on their actions and how to evaluate them when you remember they're people who are also feeling things, and from their point of view, it's different in the way it is from yours.
That's the difference in our definition of empathy. For me, that's... Where's the other guys?
They're very smart.
Yeah, some good people. We're finding some good people in the park now. Some of the good characters.
Thank you. It's been a long time. You've been doing this for years now.
5 years around that, maybe a bit more than 5 years. Almost ever since I came to the UK, I've been coming to this place and chatting with people, talking about all kinds of things. Right? I think it's very important. This is the kind. Look, if no other arguments work, people who support Russia, at least this one should work. The very fact we're having a discussion, even with the people who support Russia, the very fact we're having this discussion, the very fact that we are able to show different opinions on the same topic, shows that the Russian future, the future of Russia, that Russia envisions, is worse than the future that Ukraine envisions. That's already proof of it, because in Russia you can't defend it.
I'm no fan of Putin. Clearly Putin is an individual.
But as I said, Tony, I think sometimes you empathize a bit too much with people who don't really deserve your empathy. You know what I mean?
All I said was, I can understand why if you're Russian and you've lost 60 million people to European invasion over the course of the last
and like
100 years,
and how many, and around 20 million just to Stalin exterminating his own people. I mean, that's...
That doesn't seem negative, too negative to make a positive, okay?
I know, but
their history is they'll have lost everybody in Russia. Will have lost people from their family because the Europeans who, to them, are just people over there, and they're strangers.
Obviously, the Jews don't agree.
Those guys are saying one thing and doing another and invading.
How do we know who's
I can understand if that's your history, and everyone you know has been affected by it, you might be a little suspicious of European with it, if that's a reasonable instinct to have.
I don't think so. I really don't think so. Look, Europeans are not all the same.
I know.
You need to understand this. If the Russians see all Europeans as the same, if they see the British and the Nazis as the same when they were fighting each other, it's their ignorance. We can't appease that ignorance.
Of course, I'm not saying that their analysis is accurate. I'm saying that their ignorant assessment is understandable because they don't know the details.
I think you're using words that justify their actions too much.
How much detail do you know about what's going on in Indonesia?
In where?
Indonesia and Taiwan and most of the world. We probably don't know.
About Taiwan in particular, I know some things. Indonesia, I don't know that much.
Okay, fine. Basically, because we're not involved with that part of the world, we just have generalized ideas about what it's like. Insofar as it affects us, we judge an impact. I can understand the Russians do the same thing.
But the Russians are involved with Europe. Europe is not Indonesia for them. It's a close, nearby neighbor, which they need to relate with them all the time. They need to understand them.
In World War I and World War II, they ended up the group that they collectively see as being kind of Europe. People in Europe caused shit, and the result of Europeans not dealing with their problems was Russia ended up in 2 world wars.
Tony, again, that sounds like a you problem. Look, I'll give you an example. Imagine somebody who is, I don't know, some white guy who hates black people for whatever reason. I don't know, or a black guy who hates white people for whatever reason. And he says, "Oh, you all are all the same. All of you are the same. I hate you all because long ago in the past, one of the people of your race, has mistreated me or mistreated my family or blah blah blah."
I don't think that's
an ignorant point to make.
I'm not saying I agree with you. It's ignorant. I'm trying to draw your attention.
Let me finish.
Exodus.
We can't appease that kind of opinion by claiming that, we have to empathize with them. No, there cannot be empathy to ideas that don't deserve empathy. We can understand them, we can have understanding. Look, I know this is a bit of a discussion of semantics, of the meaning of empathy, but I think it's an important discussion because your meaning of empathy is too broad. You use empathy too loosely.
My meaning of empathy is to try and imagine it from inside the other person's head. Given there really is a head in there.
That's understanding.
Okay, that's
The Muslim one is the one with
That's understanding the other person.
No, I can understand.
That's relating to the other person. That's relating to someone.
An animal which has no empathy can understand through a theory of mind how another animal is going to behave. It doesn't mean it empathizes with it. It's not the same thing. Empathy is when, if you stub your toe, I might witness on your behalf. Yeah? I'm instinctively, before I even intellectualize it, going,
You imagine
I know
that
how
it
that
moves,
feels, and because I understand there's another person in there like me, this is my response. Now, it's good that I'm hardwired that way. That's a good, healthy sign. A psychopath won't do this.
Yes.
A psychopath will just see something happen to you, but they don't get the connection.
You want to relate to it, yes.
You just think you're an object. If you look at the history of everything everything that happens that's bad seems to have a common denominator, which is a lack of empathy. You list for me any things in history or any actions you think are negative, I'll go, oh, there's a lack of empathy there, and it follows from that it seems like the good stuff that happens generally is when there's high levels of empathy. So it's a very important topic.
I agree and I disagree. I think it's part of it. The lack of empathy is always a part of it, but it's not always the thing that causes all of these atrocities to happen. Let's, for example, compare Nazi Germany and Soviet Union. Right? Why is it that Nazi Germany is rightfully condemned, but the Soviet Union still gets some fanboys here and there? It still has people who want to return to it. Because Nazi Germany was honest in its genocidal ideals, in its evil ideas. When the Soviet Union was covering its genocidal ideas with, platitudes and ideas of equality and freedom and prosperity, they were more clever about it. They were more devious about it. You see what I mean? Empathy is something the Nazis lacked. They lacked it for everybody who's not them. Empathy is not something that a lot of the Soviets lacked. They were fooled by the supposedly good intentions. But empathy is something that the top of the Soviet Union also lacked, because they knew damn well what they were doing. They knew they were killing people for their own personal benefit. You see what I mean? The lack of empathy was not necessarily the reason why they were killed. Why people actually died. It was because people were fooled. It was because the masses in the Soviet Union, a lot of people were fooled by these platitudes of, equality.
When did I say you couldn't get fooled? What I'm saying is, you're always going to be able to get fooled, but you want to be at least bare minimum. You want to be an empathic.
But it's not like every person in the Soviet Union lacked empathy. It's more like it's. Sure, go on.
I'm not saying that if you're empathic it will solve all problems. I'm saying that in the absence of empathic, that's the way to hell. Even if you're being empathic, yes, you can be fooled and you can be bamboozled and deceived. In your story, in your analysis, the people who were doing the deceivers were the people who lacked empathy, and I agree with you. Their lack of empathy enabled them to manipulate other people who, even when they were trying to be good people, still misread the situation. Again, the culprit is lack of empathy. In this case, being handed the wheels of power. Sorry, I've got a cold today, I'm not sure.
There's another caveat to that. sometimes even people at the top can be so deluded that they actually think they're doing something good. You know, for example, I think Stalin always knew what he was doing, he just didn't really care. If you look at his actions, he was not an ideologue, he was a power-hungry psychopath. Lenin was a little different. He was also really power-hungry and he was also psychopathic to an extent, but he actually believed in a lot of the ideals that he wanted to implement. He was an ideologue.
I prefer Lenin.
Yes, he was not as bad as Stalin, but the point is, it's not like Lenin completely lacked any kind of empathy like Stalin did, but he still did the things he did. He still exterminated a lot of people, he still caused a lot of terrible things.
It's like empathy is the minimum requirement to avoid doing the bad thing. It doesn't mean if you've got empathy you'll get everything right, but if you don't have empathy it will go to shit. So I think empathy is
Sure, but that's not exactly the same argument you made.
No, it's the argument I'm saying. Empathy is literally like a sixth sense. It's like if you don't have eyesight, you'll realise you're not seeing the real world. If you lose your hearing, you're not seeing the real world. Empathy is just another sense. The more you keep it turned on, the more accurately you'll see reality. And the more accurately you see reality, the better your judgment is.
But you need the other senses to feel empathy. You can't have empathy without the other senses. No, you can't.
Really?
Yeah, really. How can you empathize with someone you don't see, hear, touch, or even know that exists?
Yeah, all of it. That's such a weird way to go. If I lose my sense of smell now, I still can have empathy, yes? If I lose my hearing, I can have empathy. If I lose my sense of...
Yes, I understand that. But if you are born without a sense of smell, hearing, all of that, can you really have empathy in that situation?
Well, no, because you won't know there's anybody else out there.
There we go.
Okay, you can't. Look, having any sense of reality, of empathy, predicates on you being aware there's other things out there. Once I'm aware of you as an object...
But having a sense of hearing does not predicate on you having a sense of sight. You see the difference?
I never said it did.
I'm establishing a difference between the five senses and empathy. Because you said empathy is like a sixth
I'm
sense.
suggesting empathy is the most, could be seen as being like the most sophisticated.
I understand that, but I'm suggesting a difference between them because the other senses let you perceive the world. Empathy is not a way of perceiving the world. Empathy is something different. Empathy is drawing a conclusion on your perception.
I'm advocating actively that I think empathy is best viewed as a tool for seeing the world accurately, the same way eyesight is, and hearing is, and touch is. It's actually a tool for seeing. Well, if I like a psychopath in the world, I think you're all objects and I don't understand you've got an inner world. I'm seeing reality less clearly than if I understand you have got an inner world. You can just condense it down.
You're not seeing reality less clearly, you're seeing reality in a less functional way. You will not be able to cooperate as a social animal with other humans.
I'm painting a less accurate picture of reality if I don't include the fact that I'm not the only human being in the world. That will just be
It's
less
not necessarily less accurate.
Really?
Yeah, you can still see 2 plus 2 is 4.
There's two universes. The universe of psychopathism, where they think they're the only living thing, that they think they're the only thing that feels in the universe. And the other one where the person realises I feel things and so do 8 billion other people. Those are two models. I say the second model is more accurate than the first.
Hold on a second. Do you think that, okay, a universe where everybody has empathy and a different universe where nobody has empathy, do you think 2 plus 2 is not 4? Is the universe that does not have any empathy?
Yeah, on that particular angle.
What do you mean? It's still going to be 4.
I never said it wasn't, I just said yes.
Okay, so it's still going to be 4,
Yeah,
right?
certain facts are
Okay, so what's the difference?
There will be facts which are common to both universes, but there will be values which are clearly different. In a universe where you are the only thing you think has any feeling, and the second universe where you realise other people have feelings, you've got those are 2 universes you can carry in your head, 2 models of the universe. One of them is genuinely more accurate than the other one, isn't it?
More accurate According to what?
according to reality itself.
The reality itself. But empathy is subjective. We choose the people we empathize with. How can that be more accurate?
There's a point of fact. I can't prove it, nor can you, but I hope we agree. There are other people in the world who have feelings.
Yes.
That's entirely likely.
Yes.
So if your perceptions give you that impression of the world, your perceptions will be more accurate than if
Yes, totally, but you're giving a different example to the one I gave. I gave an example where nobody has it.
I don't know why, because you went off piece. That wasn't the point. The point was to map out.
The point was to see whether empathy is or not a sixth sense. I say it's not, because it's fundamentally different from the other five senses. Again, I'm not preaching against empathy. I think empathy is very important. It's very good, but it's not the same as the five senses.
It can be seen as the same.
Why?
Because it gives you more accurate information about the reality that you're in. That's why. All of your senses do this. I add touch, I add smell, I add taste, I add vision. I'm getting more and more accurate data about the meta-reality around me. When I add the further piece of data that, Jesus, those things out there are feeling things as well, which isn't immediately obvious to most species. When I add that, I'm getting an even more complete and accurate picture of the reality I'm in. I'm handed that completely. I'll have a better understanding of the chains of cause and effect between me and my environment. It's a win-win for me and my environment. And if you look at it by that one unified principle, you realize how powerful it is.
Tony, it's look again. Empathy, good, sure. No. We're stuck here now. We have to finish this now. Now that we're talking about this, Tony, this is nonsense. Look, I'm sorry, but this is nonsense. And again, empathy is good, but you can't compare empathy to the other five senses. Again, if you remove all the other senses and you only leave one of them, you can still perceive the world in a way. If you remove all five senses and only leave empathy, you can't perceive the world anymore in any possible way.
That's really weird.
It's not a sense. What do you mean it's weird? It's reality.
It's really weird that you went that way. Okay. Right.
It's not weird at all. It's logical. You're comparing the five senses. I'm telling you why empathy is not the same as the five senses.
Okay. Look, I've argued the